A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television, June the 13th, after June 12th. And it's a weekend edition of the program. We're here for you to do the best we can to serve you. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
And it's a beautiful way to come with you to the home stretch. So many things to catch up on, particularly in the last 24 hours. A mixed bag. But welcome to your perfect morning starter. Right here on Channels Television, I am Kola Ologbondiyan.
So what are you tracking? What's going on? What's going on?
Quite a lot.
You can unpack it in 1 minute.
In the polity, the president's speech did come with a lot of excitement, with a lot of reactions to the president's standpoint on a number of things. He did quite a lot to dismiss reports that he's probably projecting or somewhat supporting a one-party state with the many defections. And the president's position drew some reactions from people. And it particularly elicits a question, does our democracy, support accountability? Is it powered by accountability to the electorate, to the citizens who are at the heart of democracy? If Kade were here, Kade would say the definition of the word itself, features the people 3 times. So, is it powered, by the elite few? And how healthy is our political participation? And, what is the weight of the honesty in the president's words? Particularly if you consider that while democracy was being celebrated in the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly, there were protests across different states of the Federation. Some, by the way, it's important to also capture that aspect. Some in favor of the administration and some protesting against hunger, hardship, and insecurity in the country. But we're here to help you make sense of it all. And of course, also put the president's speech in proper perspective as well, looking at those who were on the list and those who were not on that list that were supposed to be on the list. So get a cup of coffee, as we always say, sit down and join your perfect morning starter. But Jeffrey, before we go on to what we have, what are you tracking?
Of course, it's what was played out yesterday at the National Assembly. He spoke about he's not interested in one-party state. Providence prevented that in 2003 when he was governor, because then, according to him, that was the approach, so to say, of the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. Therefore, Providence, he stood his ground, and God helped him. So he's not going to be the propitiator of a one-party state. He talks about tolerance to dissenting voices. He said, curse me and all of that. I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to do my job. He, of course, he reeled out his economic scorecard and some of those things he said. I, of course, gave honors. That honors list now is a bit of a controversy. Who should be there? Who should not be there? Of course, posthumous honors as well. Of note is Ken Saro-Wiwa, which he granted the prerogative of pardon as the Commander-in-Chief and the President of the Federal Republic and the Ogoni 9. So all of that was quite important. Of course, he took a jab at the PDP. Well, I'm not going to try to solve your problem. I'm not going to solve your problem. In fact, it's a delight to watch you in disarray. Those were some of his words, speaking politically, as far as the politics is concerned. So PDP has gotten a message now, put your house in order. So whether the APC is coercing you or you're just in your inability to put yourself together, it's now your time. And those of them who are running from the PDP, you have a right to run away if you want. But the president has given a very remarkable statement. He said, I stood my ground. And a professor was giving a presentation yesterday, and he said, if not the president stood his ground, maybe we won't have democracy, or it would have been plunged into a one-party state. That's why I said some of these politicians are not principled. They don't have guts to fight to the end, but it's within their rights to move to wherever they want to fight to, move to. But more importantly for me, I was thinking again that people like Shawore should be on that list. I was thinking Chief Dele Momodu should be on that list. I was thinking if he hasn't gotten an award yet, Bukola, thinking Babafemi Ojodu should have been on that list. Because these people have their credentials as far as that struggle is concerned. I have my reasons. Bayo Onanuga, well-deserved. For young people who know Bayo Onanuga because of some of his rhetorics that were divisive in that sense in 2023, No, that was not the reason. If you know his history, as far as the struggle is concerned, from leaving the Concord, resigning because he didn't want to apologize to the head of state, to starting PM, the news, which was proscribed, and then Tempo, which was banned, and then to PM News. They've been in the trenches. So it's basically a word to those in the trenches. But more importantly for me yesterday, I think people missed out one of the most important presentations I've seen in recent time that was done by Chukwuma Soludo, the governor of Anambra State. If you didn't watch that presentation at the platform, please go and watch it. We'll be talking about ideologies and differentials in terms of politics and politicians. Professor Chukwuma Soludo, he held nothing back. And he was very honest, he was very brutal with the truth, he was very straightforward, and he profiled solutions on how to build the future as long as political parties for national development is concerned. I think it's something everybody should go and listen to, watch again. Go to Channels TV's website. You're going to see that, or the platform website on YouTube. Watch that. And it's something I recommend for anyone. So besides what the president has said, I think more importantly, to build political parties according to ideologies for national development and greater participation of the populace, I think Chukwuma Soludo's presentation on the platform is the latest model that we should look at.
Absolutely. And speaking of who was supposed to be on the list and was not on that list, and reactions have been coming from that, and that's from Chief Dele Momodu, who sent in a swift reaction yesterday to Channels Television. And listen to some of the things that he said. He says he wishes to humbly disagree with all those who have reached out to him protesting or complaining that President Bola Tinubu deliberately missed out his name in the June 12 honors list released earlier yesterday. He would like to make the following observations. It is the prerogative of every government to determine those it wishes to recognize and honor. Honorary awards are endless and can be given later or never. These are well-deserving heroes whose names were clearly omitted. But the big gist from his statement is captured in the last paragraph, where he said he would have been embarrassed to be recognized by a regime that's unapologetically trampling on tenets of democracy and dangerously leaving our dear beloved nation down the slope of dictatorship and full-blown tyranny. On the other hand, it would have been considered rude and impudent of him to reject such a national honor from a man he still considers his big brother and friend, despite his vehement disagreement and displeasure with him over matters of political views. And so he thanks the president for rescuing him from what might have been misconstrued as compromise, arrogance, and disrespect. Talk about candor from that particular statement. And of course, we know that Chief Dele Momodu was also in the trenches during the June 12 struggle, and old pictures of him with the president, have surfaced time and again. But should he have been on that list, it would have been a difficult thing to reject and still, be brutal with the truth about, the developments within the polity.
Well, he has his position, and I'm just thinking, we had a conversation with him, was it yesterday?
2 days
back.
2
days ago. I'm just thinking that if he was on the show today, after this had happened, maybe they would have misconstrued it to be, oh, he's angry because he wasn't given an award. So it was important that conversation happened before the award ceremony, the presentation of the award by the president, as far as the struggle for June 12 is concerned. So he was in the trenches. So we cannot deny his democratic credentials as far as June 12 struggle is concerned. We saw the young Omoyele Sowore. He was a student of the University of Lagos. I think he was the student union president. I think Sowore was barely 24 or 23 years old. I don't know how old he was.
At the time?
Yes, I remember our chairman, John Momo, was interviewing MK Abiola, and we could see Sowore behind, as a young man, he's been in this struggle. I don't know whether Sowore has actually left the trenches. So if it's about the struggle for June 12, Sowore deserves, even if he disagrees with literally every government, he deserves to be on that list. Babafemi Ojodu, if he wasn't on that, if he has never been awarded, he deserves to be. And those military men, there's a part we forget. We always talk about civilians. We had a conversation with Colonel Oloruntoba and Emmanuel
And
Ndubueze
yesterday.
and all the Guadabes and Bello Fadile and the men who fought, who did all the code to make sure that within the military ranks, democracy returns. I don't think we honor them enough. And they were on the show yesterday appealing that what was done to them in that phantom coup was very disgraceful, shameful. They should be restored their ranks, apologized to, and compensated one form or the other. I think the president should look into that.
And by the way, Jeffrey, that was the second letter that they were writing to the president. They had first written one in March, in the month of March, to the president, asking that you put a panel recommendations, you know, to restore them and, you know, restore their ranks and compensate them for what they suffered, be implemented. And yesterday would have been a brilliant opportunity for the president to also right that wrong, you know, in history, because the president himself is a student of political history. In fact, one of the active figures of our political history. One might ask that the institutions, that have the responsibility of ensuring that issues like this are brought before the table of the president, actually get there. And, if those institutions had been active enough, perhaps the names of these men who were also somewhat victims of the wrongs of our political history would have been compensated. And speaking of which, Mossop has been reacting to the presidential pardon granted Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others during the regime of military dictator Sani Abacha, and has been, in fact, disagreeing with somewhat the approach of the president, saying that presidential pardon suggests that perhaps they committed the offense, but what would have been, right would be an exoneration of the Ogoni 9, Ogoni 8, I believe. Ogoni 9. So that calls for reflection. What's the difference between a presidential pardon and an exoneration if you consider that those were prisoners of conscience who were in the active defense of the environmental rights of the people of Ogoni, and by extension, the Niger Delta. But so much, happened yesterday.
It's interesting that one of the persons that was on that panel at some point became, I think, the head of customs, I think under Muhammadu Buhari. I'm telling you. So you go and watch some of those videos of the men who sat and passed those judgments and some of those kangaroo, if they call it in those days, panels that just look for a way to hang you, give you a bad name and all of that. Some of the shameful perpetrators of some of this act. Abacha was a dictator. There's no better way to say it. That is the freedom we have today, even though we're shouting about it being in danger, but you can't compare it to being what it was as far as what do you call it now? The 90s and the days of the military is concerned. That's what we must continue to uphold freedom. June 12 is a milestone in our democracy in terms of fighting to keep democracy. 2003 also around the issue of second term. 2010 around the controversy between Yar'Adua's dying and Jonathan taking over. And of course, the latest one, the unconstitutional declaration of suspension of elected officials by President Bola Tinubu. So there are sometimes. That's why journalists are always respected. At some point, you must stand by the side of the truth, not just about neutrality, as long as your enlightened opinion is concerned. So the cap of advocacy and activism can shift at different points in history. And it's important, when those moments in history come, you take your place and be remembered for good. I just got a list from Colonel Ologbondiyan. Some of the military people who were part of those within the military that insisted on restoration to democracy. There are about 40 of them that are still alive. He said the victims that are still alive, 40. However, a comprehensive list of the living and dead victims have long been submitted to the President, the Honorable Minister of Justice, and Attorney General of the Federation. So, yes, this conversation about June 12, I'm happy it happened. I'm happy there's a day dedicated to it. I'm even going to be happier if the president will be giving speeches, whichever president comes will be giving speeches at a joint session of the National Assembly, because that's the people's house. That's why it's called the people's house. All of us are represented one way or the other in those bicameral chambers. And so yesterday, there were applause, there were clapping, there were chanting, there were laughing, there were everything. What do you make of what played out yesterday? Remember, we asked a question. So look at everybody seated in that chamber, both the executive and the legislator, as well as members from the subnational. When you look at all of them, is democracy safe in their hands? We asked that question yesterday. We're going to get responses later on the show. Bukola, let's take a break, Abba.
Yes,
and when we come back, we'll look at what the dailies are saying. Join us again.
Welcome back. Time now to just look at what the dailies are saying this morning, and we're going to be starting with the New Telegraph newspaper. The New Telegraph newspaper, of course, also trails on the President's Democracy Day address, and this is how it is captioned. One party state not good for Nigeria, seeing opposition in disarray pleasurable. That's ascribed to, of course, the president, and there are some insights into what the president has said. Says reforms already showing positive results, urges lawmakers to make laws to encourage industrialization, job creation, confers honors on Yar'Adua, late President Yar'Adua, late Kudirat Abiola Nwosu Fawehinmi, Ogoni 9, and of course Nobel laureate Soyinka Amuka and others. And it would have been a surprise if the former Senate President, who was also present at that address, Senator Bukola Saraki, joined others in clapping. And he gave quite an interesting perspective later on, that the PDP has to put itself in order and it will not be assisted by any member of the administration. But it was beautiful to watch as well. And the reactions in the coming days from the main opposition party is also critical at this particular point in time. Will it lead to any significant, moves of reconciliation and stability? Speaking of which, the former Senate President chairs that reconciliation, committee of the People's Democratic Party. So what will come out of it? How would the PDP and by extension that committee react to Mr. President's expressed and very frank position? Jeffrey, you have the next paper.
I'm happy with the position of the president as far as that is concerned. I'm not going to try to help you. In fact, I'm not going to help you. In fact, I'm just excited to see you in disarray. So that's a clear, for me, the stronger message is to those who are running away from the party. That is, because he has also said it will be political malpractice not to allow people that are coming into our party to come. Come on, the door is open. They are allowed by the Constitution. But for me, the fundamental message is when the Southwest was governed by his own party at the inception of 1999, the Fourth Republic, and by 2007, the government played a fast one on him, and Lagos was the only state standing, and he was governor. If he stood his ground. In fact, at some point when he did the LCDA, his allocations were denied. Just imagine that done to some governors today. They would have chickened out. No guts. So it's just clearly the president saying, if I chickened out as a leader of my party as at that time, as a governor of Lagos State, and I did not fight, maybe this one party state you're talking about would have had it since 2003. So perhaps now, whether APC, PDP, Labour, as you're getting tickets to people, especially governors and legislators, ask them, do you have guts? Can you stand the center if you're not at the center? Because this, anyway, I don't want to use a bad word.
And let's assume without conceding that indeed there are no backhand moves,
whether there are or not,
to get members of the opposition into the ruling party, to strengthen the chances of the ruling party and indeed the ranks of the ruling party. As they say in psychological warfare, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. And so they're going to be profiting off of the division and the instability in the opposition party and indeed in the other opposition parties as well. So it's a strong message to the Labour Party, to the PDP, and other parties that are in this.
So do you think when Bola Tinubu was governor, did he not try to persuade him to join the PDP? 2007 or so, PDP had 31 or 30 states. You think Bola Tinubu was not persuaded to join the PDP? So whether the APC is actually coercing them, blackmailing them, threatening them, whatever it is they're accusing the APC of is inconsequential. compared to what I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying we need leaders with guts that can stand their ground. You understand? And this stems from the position of not having ideologies. Because if there are ideologies, this is not common. So I recommend Governor Chukwuma Soludo's presentation at the platform yesterday for those of you who want to understand all this I'm talking about. Anyway, let's go to the Guardian newspaper. Guardian. It says, June 12, Nigerians differ on progress, impact 32 years after. Nigerians differ on progress, impact 32 years after. A Democracy Day. So you can see the list of people: Alex Shibro, Kudirat Abiola, Prof. Wole Soyinka. I can see Akinyemi, Prof. Akinyemi, Humphrey Nwosu, Femi Falana. We see Bishop Kuka, we see Sarawiwa, and all of these people deserving of the honor of being recognized by the Nigerian state in that sense. So, but the paper, if you want to get details of what the Guardian is saying, go to page 6. So the president has a scorecard on the progress after 32 years. Nigerians also have their own scorecard of progress after 32 years. So they differ. It depends on where you sit, what your realities are, what your experiences are, as far as this is concerned. So at every point in time, we must continue to uphold this democracy. But I have the next one.
And there's just, you know, one headline that's interesting. The bottom of the, you know, the picture spread on The Guardian. Abiola family seeks legislation to institutionalize June 12. And I'm just thinking, you know, how it adds to the conversation and somewhat how does it strengthen what's been already done by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, making June 12 Democracy Day and conferring a posthumous, you know, honor on the central figure of June 12. You know, but that's the reaction that is coming from you know, the Abiola family at this point in time in response to the President's Democracy Day speech yesterday. But let's go to the Blueprint newspaper and take a look at this. Alarm about one-party state rings in error. Tinubu tells opposition, honors Kudirat Abiola, Shehu Yar'Adua, Nwosu Ogoni, 9 and others. Of course, that's it from the Blueprint newspaper. And there's something that is cherry to note at the top of that. NNPC Limited rakes in 5.891 trillion naira as revenue in April. That's it from Blueprint newspaper.
Okay, so which fellows? I think let's get back to, okay, that's Blueprint you just read. So a lot of conversation around this, Bukola. We can't say just enough. As far as the issue of the politics and polity is concerned, let's just build politics with ideology. As we stand now, there's no difference between APC, PDP, Labour, and MPP. Everybody just, there's a name, Professor Soludo called it, I think, elite something party. And you don't know which is standing where. Even within political parties, they have different ideologies, depending on who is the leader at that time. And it's not helping anybody. It reduces participation when there's no clarity as to ideas and direction, as to belief system and conviction. That's why we have the recklessness in movement and all of that. So for now, they should enjoy it. And we hope that someday we're going to build something more solid, more proper, more dignifying, so that people can be, you know, joining. Because we need a lot of young people. I believe part of the recklessness within the political class, so some of them, not all of them, by the way, is the reason why some young people are like, these people are not serious. So what's the difference between you and, if I join, you say, it's just like, it's just a political platform, not a political party. Let's just use it to achieve our aim. If it's not working for us, we run away. We must build people with guts, people with integrity, people with determination to stand their ground, no matter whose ox is God. Even if they have to lose what they have, that's what it takes to build a state. Abiola, who we are celebrating today, Bukola, the reason why I'm taking this very seriously, we must understand that whatever stands the test of time, some of them is built on blood. I'm a Christian, and I know the sacrifice Jesus paid. Blood was involved. This democracy, 1993, lives were lost, including the hero himself, his wife. A couple died for this democracy. those of us who are beneficiaries of this democracy, the least we can do is to hold on to that legacy and not being consistent in character and conviction. So we will have to do what we can as politicians. I'm not a politician, I'm just saying we now, Nigerians, politicians, civil society organizations, citizens, media, every arm of government, we need to do the best we can, because what we're enjoying today, lives were lost, blood, sweat, tears went in to this democracy we're enjoying today. So we cannot be careless with it.
Absolutely.
And so we'll call out anybody or any group of persons, no matter who they are, from the president down to the local government chairman to anybody. If you want to tamper with this democracy, we will fight you. It's as simple as that.
And you know, Jeffrey, you were talking about young persons, and it was just interesting to watch yesterday what transpired beyond the headlines. You know, what is significant for me is those celebrating democracy, the bulk of those celebrating democracy, you know, are the elite, the ones who hold elected appointments or elected roles or appointed roles in office. If you look at the National Assembly, the Democracy Day address, if you looked even further at other events around the federal capital, and then, you know, you go around across the states of the Federation, those who are marking democracy in a way that signifies disaffection are young persons. And, you know, what was the age of those who are celebrated as heroes of democracy back then in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, you know, when the fight for democracy was on. Some of them were in their 40s, some of them were in their 20s, were arguing in favor of those who should have been on that list today, you know. So beyond what would be the economy of protest of those who are supposedly marking or celebrating democracy in favor of the elite, there should be a calling to debates about alternatives to the reforms, to the economic policies of the administration, such that you can challenge the establishment and resources always flow in the place of value. So what is the debate that is ongoing beyond the agitations on both sides of the divide? And I believe that is critical, you know, to young persons making a mark for themselves, you know, now, such that they can effectively take control of, you know, the levers of power in the next generation, which is not too far from now, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. So let's get to some feedback we had from yesterday. Thank you for bringing the young people in.
Absolutely.
I want to beg young people, if you're interested in public sector leadership or public leadership, whatever name is called, please join any of the political parties. Join APC, join PDP, join Labour, join NMPP, join parties.
Yeah.
If you want change, infiltrate the system, join and push up your ideologies. And,
it's not enough to be, you know, deployed as tools of the establishment.
Join the parties.
And, you know, supporting, you know, from
change
a point
from
of view that is empty, but offer, you know, ideological differences. Absolutely. All
right, let's get to some of the feedback. Remember, today we're discussing June 12, some of the speeches and remarks by the president yesterday at a joint session of the National Assembly. About 3 of our guests will be joining us at different points, a professor, a politician, an analyst as well. We're talking about this. And of course, towards the end of the program, we'll bring you a real estate developer, Mr. Brian Falojimi. He's a guy who was doing a lot of content as far as if you want to know how to build and what it costs. And let's just call it 101 of real estate. He'll be here to do that. But let's take you to some of the reactions from yesterday when we asked the question, is democracy safe in the hands of the current crop of politicians? Let's get to your email feedback. It said, democracy, this is coming from Jakes. That's an interesting name for a Nigerian. Democracy is dying inch by these current alleged corrupt, we must add, crops of politicians that are not out to protect the nation. Democracy will die sooner than later in this present dispensation if nothing is done by we, the Nigerians. The tiny pin will soon prick the balloon, and your guess is as good as mine. I hope you're not calling for anarchy. We don't want anarchy. Yeah. We will democratically fight the cause for democracy. All right?
Yeah, indeed. And this one is from Anyanwu Kelechi, who says, while Nigerian democracy faces serious risks from political greed, weak institutions, and electoral malpractice, it is not yet doomed. The survival of democracy depends on citizen vigilance. judicial independence, media freedom, and electoral reform, if Nigerians, especially the youth, continue demanding accountability and rejecting bad leadership, democracy can endure. And, that is critical to the survival of democracy. I couldn't agree more. The health of the civic space, the continued engagement, and the liberty of the institutions to allow those conversations to thrive. That's the heart of democracy. But Kelechi concludes by saying, however, if corruption and impunity persist unchecked, the system remains vulnerable.
Absolutely, from Kelechi, those are your thoughts. Let's read from Jesse Habela. Jesse Habela writes, what is the essence of June 12 if those who truncated our fragile democracy then are still being celebrated, even in a democratic era? The worst part of it is the fact that June 12 was recognized by President Buhari, who was part of the junta that dethroned a democratically elected government. Which moral right does he have now to tell us when we should celebrate democracy? Again, our current crop of democratic leaders, perhaps making it look like the military junta did well by delving into politics then, because of the abysmal performance of these people in public offices. So shots thrown at Muhammadu Buhari, shots thrown at Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, and all of that. Anyway, we appreciate all your thoughts. Please bring them on as far as the issue of the conversation on June 12 is concerned. In fact, let's say, what do you make of June 12 celebration? Send us emails, send us WhatsApp messages, send us hashtag CTV Morning Brief, hashtag CTV Morning Brief. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to the very first part of our conversation right here on the Morning Brief. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's binge through the things that played out yesterday with our guest. Kola Ologbondiyan is a former publicity secretary of the People's Democratic Party. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ologbondiyan, good to see you and welcome. Happy June 12 or Democracy Day in Nigeria. You know, we do happy everything in Nigeria, so welcome.
Geoffrey, good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
Fantastic. I
know say happy Democracy Day. Yeah, happy Democracy Day to Nigerians.
Fantastic. We're happy we have a democracy 26 years down the line. We'll continue to celebrate it, no matter how it is going on. But we have a democracy. We'll continue to work to improve it, which is why we brought you here to look at all sides. But I think the best place to start is what played out yesterday, especially some of the remarks of the president. But you may have to want to start from your chronicling of the journey of June 12 till now, and then piggyback from that to talking about the swipe the president took at your party. He said, I'm not going to try to help you. In fact, I won't help you. In fact, I'm even happy seeing you in disarray.
Disarray. Well, thank you very much, Geoffrey. But I expected you to start by congratulating my party for finally holding its National Executive Committee meeting, which you have even challenged me to a betting that it's not going to come on board. Well, glory to God, on May 27, 2025, the PDP held its National Executive Committee after over 1 year of inability to achieve that. Now, going directly to your question, which is how democracy has fared so far. Well, before 1999, I mean, going by the unfortunate death of Chief M.K. Abiola, having won the election, which was annulled, starting from 1998, when General Absalami became the head of state or military president, you recall that he introduced a democratic process, a transitional democratic process, which, unlike previous military heads of state like General Ibrahim, Babangida and General Sani Abacha, took a new dimension and from all intents and purposes was designed to hand over power to the civilian. Well, we started in 1999, President Olusegun Obasanjo, on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. We had the National Assembly on its various leadership. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, yes, spoke towards the issues that occurred within those periods until he became the president. And of significance, and he also spoke about the fact that, there were challenges, particularly on the run of democracy, particularly when the issue of third term came up, as well as when President Yar'Adua took ill, and there was a need to swear in the vice president, which led to doctrine of necessity. Well, it was also, I discovered that he was silent on the challenges of executive and legislative imbroglio, which was more pronounced during the reign of Senate President Bukola Saraki, in which Senator Bukola Saraki stood stoutly for the defense of the parliament. Well, I didn't hear him talk about that. But having said all that, Geoffrey, it is, well, I never expected, personally, and I believe so in the People's Democratic Party, we never expected Mr. President to come to the public arena and declare that, he knows nothing about the plot to bring up a one-party state. From the traditional days, Geoffrey, the king of the kingdom doesn't come out to take responsibility for certain actions. The body language foretells those actions. The agents of government or the agents of the king foretells those actions. So we are not in any way expecting Mr. President to come up and say that, I'm behind the design to bring in a one-party state. No. But I'm also surprised, well, maybe I didn't listen well, or maybe I've not read well. I haven't seen where Mr. President spoke to the need to reform our electoral processes, even in that remark. I have not seen any action. Mr. President said that, he doesn't have any means in the INEC to say that INEC should not register new parties. But those who have filed for registration have come out to say that they have refused to register them. There's even a case of a particular intent of a group of people who want to register, and they have completed all the processes, and they have been told to come for their certificate. Day in, day out, they have not been issued that certificate. It's also strange to me that Mr. President will come up and say that, forever and ever, I will never be involved in the one-party plot. But the design of his party, even members of his own cabinet, have come out to ask, even on this platform, Geoffrey, to say where will they find the party to contest on. And I don't want to mention him, but if push comes to shove, we will tell you to replay the video of where a prominent member, a minister, serving minister, came out and say where will they find the party. So Mr. President doesn't need by himself to come out and say that, don't register this party. He doesn't need by himself to say that, I'm the one responsible for the skirmishes in all the opposition political parties. Nobody's expecting that now. Nigerians are more mature more than that. But as the Yoruba man will say, or from my own version, or from my own variant of the Yoruba language from Kaba in Kogi State, we will say that there's nobody that doesn't know how to hide the meat under the thumb and come around to say that, I don't have any meat in my mouth, and even open his or her mouth. So we understand it. But I also accept the challenge from Mr. President, and I think every opposition party members who is worthy of the membership of his political party must accept the challenge from Mr. President, that he will keep his door open and allow people who want to defect to come into the party, to the All Progressives Congress. There's no problem with that. There's no issue with that. So it's a challenge that has been thrown back to the opposition political parties. And I hope the deserters, the defectors, who were in National Assembly yesterday, got their lesson practically and got their insult practically. Because no matter what you say about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, since 1999 he had been consistent in the opposition struggle. And he took it that far to be elected president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even though we have our reservations about the elections. But the Supreme Court said yeah?
So speaking of what is not hidden is perhaps the example that Mr. President showed when he was governor in 2003. He didn't cower in the face of you know, what may be seen as the policy of the administration when they withdrew local government funds. Speaking of example that he showed, he referred to being the last man standing also when there were plots and manipulations to decimate the opposition. So the question is, who will be the last governor standing in the PDP? And this question is important because we've also seen meetings with Mr. President between governor of your party, governor of Osun State, Adeleke. So because of that, there are people saying that there are more defections to come. So who will be the last governor standing?
Well, to go into that, because we were particular about the Osun Governor Adeleke, that he went visiting the president. Well, you see, he has come out to defend himself by saying that, oh, they went for a family reunion, and perhaps there's a relationship in the family way. I will not judge anybody until they commit their action. So for me, I do not know who the last governor standing will be, to answer you directly, Bukola. But let me tell you something. What I do know is that there is a conscious effort within the People's Democratic Party, and I can speak about the People's Democratic Party about this, that the governors of the PDP are challenged now to reinvent the political party to meet the exigencies of this time. And one person that is also hugely acting on this is Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State. And I'm also aware that the chairman of the Governors Forum, Governor Bala Mohammed, hasn't told anybody that he's going to defect or that he's running away from the party. And there are also a number of governors that way who are still saying, look, let us pull this party together and see how we can reinvent it to suit the purpose for which it was founded. So, be that as it may, I'm not one person who will say that, oh, it is non-dimittis or the end has come for the People's Democratic Party. No. And I can assure you that the way and the manner in which the party is presently progressing, the end hasn't come. For instance, I just told Jeffrey now that if I knew how to bet, I would have gone into betting with him. I would have collected money from him today because he said that he doesn't believe that the neck of the People's Democratic Party will ever hold. But despite the challenges ahead of the May 27, 2025 NEC meeting, it's held, and we are proceeding from there to hold another NEC on June 30th. And we'll proceed from there for the National Convention of the party in August 2025.
Mr. Ologbondiyan, don't worry. I wish I would have warned you before you warned me anyway, because it took forever for that neck to eventually hold. But on a serious note, there's a challenge ahead. A group led by Nyesom Wike said they are called the Concerned PDP Stakeholders, and it's very amusing to me what is playing out. So Wike defends the president. He said the coalition will fail. He will support the president. It's not difficult to know Wike's position because he will say what he has to say. But the same Wike is saying your party must float or must bring a candidate from the South. Those are some of his conditions for peace. Anyanwu must stay as national secretary. So that even sends a conflicting and confusing signal in that sense. What do you make of that new position of the concerned PDP stakeholders, of one person who will support an incumbent, yet is saying the party must follow a particular path?
Well, thank you, Geoffrey, for this question. First, let me start by saying that I will draw from the experiences that I had when I was a member of the National Working Committee under the leadership of the total chairman, Prince Uche Secondus. I will recall that a particular senator who was the deputy national chairman North for the People's Democratic Party went to the villa for a meeting ahead of the 2019 presidential election. So he went to romanticize with the villa. Before he left the villa, the party under the leadership of the Prince Uche Secondus expelled the senator I will not mention his name out of respect because he's late now and he will not be able to defend himself, so I keep that name aside. But the important thing I want to say, that for going to the villa to hold a meeting, we expelled him as a working committee. I have said this, and I believe I've said this one on this particular platform, which is that the Minister of Works, Governor Dave Umahi, declared that any of his aides that speak in support, that speak against then President Muhammadu Buhari will be removed from office. He also romanticized with the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. He was then governor of Ebonyi State. We did not only send people to go and meet and discuss with him, we also issued him a query. That is the way party runs. So those who have been elected in the position of responsibility as national chairman, as national secretary, who are now fanning the embers of discord and of division, who are now allowing people to act the way they want, will be held accountable, if not today, in a day in the future. Now, you talk about the meeting held by the Minister of FCT, Chief Nyesom Wike, wherein they say that they do not agree with certain decisions, or even describing the NEC as illegitimate or so. Well, that is opinion expressed by a group. The party is focused and the party is progressing. The issue of Senator Ayawu, I don't want to say that it has been arrested because was decided at the next NEC meeting that the report of the Southeast Zonal Executive or the Zonal Caucus will be presented at the next NEC meeting, which comes up on June 30 for a final decision. But I'm amazed, Geoffrey, that Chief Sam Otom, the governor of former governor of Benue State, who sat within the arena where I sat at that NEC meeting, because I can recall that it's only former governor of Gombe State, Governor Dakwambo, that sat in between us, will now turn around and begin to raise issues about a meeting that he had, about the decision taken at a meeting that he attended, where he didn't raise one objection to any of the issues. I expected him to go back to that kind of group and say, no, whatever issues that we have, let us go before NEC and go and table it at NEC. I do not expect him because of the importance of tomorrow, of history tomorrow. I do not expect him to now turn around and dismiss a meeting in which he participated, which he recognized as a necessity, and where decisions were made. So it takes me back to the issue of zoning in the People's Democratic Party. Because today it's very convenient for people to argue, oh, PDP didn't zone, oh, PDP made mistake to have zoned, to not have zoned. It was this same Chief Sam Otom who chaired the zoning committee meeting ahead of the 2023 presidential election.
But Mr. Ologbondiyan,
it was this same Chief Sam Otom committee that returned a verdict of no zoning. But I believe that whatever, I'm not opposed to people having agitations. I'm not opposed to people raising issues or finding objections. But whatever the issues are, June 30th NEC meeting, let everybody bring their issues there and let the party resolve and continue to progress.
But Mr. Ologbondiyan, even though you say that the outcome of the concerned PDP stakeholders meeting is the resolution of a group, there were quite a number, you know, there was quite an attendance at that meeting, which I wonder if the PDP as a whole can ignore. We're talking about 36 state governors, and the former governor of Benue State, whom you're mentioning now, says he would dictate the piper, pays the piper, dictates the tune, that no other individual has contributed to the PDP as Minister Nyesom Wike has. So really, is funding at the heart of some of the challenges of the PDP? And why can't other PDP leaders take up the responsibility of driving funds to sustain the party?
Bukola, I want to ask a question. Can any part of the body be greater than the whole or be bigger than the whole? I don't think you will answer in the affirmative. You will answer in the affirmative. There's no part that will be bigger than the whole. So if there are issues, and if you look at the organs of our party, from the working committee to the NEC to the convention, before you have a convention, NEC has the authority over any other organ of the party. Not to even talk about groupings. I'm talking about organs recognized in the constitution of the People's Democratic Party. NEC has a superior position more than any other organ. So NEC cannot take a position and a group will say that, oh, that position, that decision is not binding. No, I don't agree with that. You may have reservations, like I said in the beginning. If you have your reservations, bring those reservations to the next NEC. And in this case, as we speak, the party resolved that the next NEC will be on June 30th. So whatever reservation that any pressure group has on any of the decisions or decisions that won't be taken, bring it to NEC.
Mr. Ologbondiyan, there's a battle ahead, and we're here to watch it. You know, we're not. I'm not going to use the term of the president, disarray. No, we would like to see political parties battle, whether it's APC, PDP. That's our work, to watch them battle, as long as it's for the good of democracy. But thank you so much, Kola Ologbondiyan, former National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, and we wish your party well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey.
Absolutely. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to Professor Oke Ikechukwu, a strategist in communication and leadership and management. He's going to x-ray his views on the president's speech yesterday and some of the takeaways, as well as our journey in 26 years of unbroken democracy. Join us again.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television, and we're still reflecting on the presidential democracy address to a joint session of the National Assembly by the president from yesterday, June 12, Democracy Day. And joining us on this particular one is Professor Oke Ikechukwu, Director, Development Specs Academy, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Prof, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, thank you.
And so there's so much to talk about from the president's speech. Either it's the granting of presidential pardon to the Ogoni Nine, his, self-assessment of his reforms in the last 2 years, and his call for the preservation of Democracy Day, and his disowning, which is the big talking point, by the way, of attempts at making Nigeria a one-party state, and saying confidently that he in fact would derive pleasure from the disarray of the opposition party, and saying he has at no time tried to interfere in the registration of political parties. From your standpoint, to all the elements in the president's speech yesterday, how much of statesmanship did you see, and what in it do you agree with the opposition that some were just for the optics?
Well, let me start from the most critical, or rather most volatile issue on the table. Kola just left your studios. He's still on the same matter of, disorganizing the opposition. You see, when a vehicle is going downhill, you don't need to push it. So if you touch it, they will say, oh, you're the one who pushed it downhill. But a vehicle that's going downhill does not need to be pushed. Point number one. I'll relate it to the PDP. Point number two, if you see a building that is collapsing on its own, you don't go inside it to take shelter. So going to the question of the vehicle, I think the party, the concern of PDP in particular is understandable, but PDP must also ask itself some questions. What is the position of PDP NEC on any issue at all? When you put that position on the table, you ask yourself, are there people within the party speaking in the public domain, contesting the position of NEC? The answer is yes. If you go to ask PDP today, who is your party secretary? You will not get one answer. If you also ask the party, what is it that's holding you together, that's open to question. So it's okay to come out and speak of being determined. The PDP must wake up to the fact that as a platform, as a political platform, as a leadership recruitment platform, it is losing everything it needs to be a meaningful opposition. And is addressing current issues without looking back. And I'll take us back a little. Recall that in 2019, Atiku was the candidate of the party. One of the other candidates was Aminu Tambuwal. Both of them had just returned to the party after defecting. They didn't get what they wanted, they came back. Many of the people in the party were not happy. Many of them, like Sule Lamido, even McCarthy, who was party chairman, Ekweremadu, all of them had strong political ambitions. Atiku came in, then considered an outsider and got the ticket. Not only did he get the ticket, there was controversy over who would be Atiku's deputy. It was given to Peter Obi. Ekweremadu was angry about that. Southeast people came and gave a public address. In fact, they addressed the press on the matter with Dave Omahi as the spokesperson, that they don't know, they didn't propose Peter. He's not the candidate of the Southeast. Now, that's the vice president of your party. That's your presidential candidate. That's the presidential candidate of your party. You rejected his vice. On top of all of that, internal wranglings continued, and then the PDP thought it was going to solve the problem by making McCarthy, Lamido, and Ekweremadu technical advisors to the PDP presidential campaign at the time. There couldn't have been any greater insult to those people, particularly Lamido and McCarthy. Lamido is one of these. If you want to discuss the history of the PDP or serious politicking in Nigeria, and don't bring in Lamido's name, Sule Lamido, you're not serious. It was insulting. Of course, they all ignored it. It was obvious the party was going to lose that election because for most stakeholders, those old, if you like, elder statesmen of the party, if there's such a thing, they were saying to themselves and those who are close to them, Atiku has got the ticket. Let him go and become president. Let us see. That's why you saw that they lost spectacularly where it was expected, because nobody was there to warehouse anything for them. And you see, the mistake got carried further. In the next election, what happened? Atiku was, in the primaries, Atiku was there, Wike was there, Tambuwal was there again. Tambuwal got up and stepped down for Atiku. Not only did he step down, he made a speech. So with his speech, with his candidate, his votes, and that of Atiku, they were able to beat Wike. But if you look at the vote Wike got at that election, at those primaries, you know that Wike was one billed to take the presidential ticket. But there's a snag there nobody's paying attention to, which is part of the crisis of the PDP today. Number one, after getting the ticket, what did Atiku do? He made Tambuwal chairman or whatever of the campaign. What do you think Wike's people will be feeling? You've made the man they're angry with chair of the campaign. If you wanted Tambuwal to be chair of the campaign, you could have made Emeka Ihedioha the chair. Emeka is just like Tambuwal. So that lack of strategic calculation entered the thing and has been there. And Wike, nobody knows it. Recall that I was part of Tambuwal's campaign in 2019, not the more current one. Strategic Communication Directorate and headship of that campaign. And I can tell you that there was nobody in the Federal Republic of Nigeria or outside it who was behind that campaign if you took away the muscle, commitment and friendship and goodwill of Nyesom Wike. Only Wike, and the view then was, because, look, when you're in a campaign, you know the structure of that campaign. I know those we visited, I know places we went to, who was of substance behind that campaign. And Tambuwal have gotten that ticket. But at the last minute, he lost the ticket due to another conspiracy. You know, we had gone to, but I will spare the details. I may mention it later. But the point being then that the PDP, a very robust party, A party which during the days of Obasanjo, Audogbe, and even Atiku ran campaigns that were impressive. You had, I think, was it 2003? Yes, 3 campaign teams or trains, one headed by Obasanjo, heading to different parts of the country at different times, another headed by Audogbe, the party chairman, heading to different parts of the country at different times, and another by Atiku. Today, it has shrunk into a whimpering collection of confounded, if you like, men and women who are pretending that they have a political party. What else does the PDP do today other than talk about its quarrels? Well, occasionally it makes press releases attacking APC, thinking that that is political opposition. The whole point of political opposition is that you present a profile that will make you attractive to the next person. That makes somebody say to himself, no, I need this man to replace these other guys. They don't know what they're doing. Please tell me what makes PDP attractive today. Internally, it is totally it is in total disarray. But we've been told in confidence that it was the APC destabilizing the party. You may recall that Atiku told us that he made a public statement nearly 2 months ago that, it's the APC destabilizing the party that is giving 50 million to people to destabilize the party. And I ask myself, if you're a party of convinced members, you believe in what you're doing, you believe in your ideology, you don't accept the alternative they are presenting, why would you accept to be confused? Anybody who can say, go to hell, this is what I believe. Now, to destabilize this wonderful and robust party of yours, all it took was 50 million. He didn't say 50 million pounds, he didn't say 50 million euros, he didn't say 50 million naira, he said $50 million. He said 50 million naira. Convert it to dollars. That's the kind of money you bring out from your breast pocket to buy groundnut in real terms. That is what it took to scatter, or is taking to scatter this your very big party with committed loyalists. My good fellow, it means you have no political party. It means you have no convinced members. It means that you're probably not even a town union, an age grade association, if that's what it will take to destabilize you. And you look at the party, it's not garnering anything because, look, take what is going on there now. Just look at it more closely. Please tell me the young people you see in the PDP. Look at those who have been around their candidate in the last 10 years. Tell me any new entrants into that collection. So there are so many internal issues people are angry about.
Prof, just a moment, Prof. Very grim pictures you painted. Like, I'm almost tempted to ask whether the party is redeemable. The reason why we stay on the opposition is because if we want to practice proper democracy, we need a viable opposition. The APC gave us quality opposition, and they found themselves in power.
Absolutely.
The PDP is struggling, has been struggling from the outset. So 2 questions in one, so that we can pack within the short time we have. Are they redeemable? That's on one hand. On the other hand, a man who nobody can deny his contribution to the PDP, Nyesom Wike, is a dramatist person in this particular conflict at the moment. But the challenge in my head is that Wike is sending conflicting signals. I want you to speak to that conflicting signal. What I mean is, I'll support the president, coalition will fail, this president will be reelected. On the other hand, field a candidate from the South. So clearly he's not going to support whatever the PDP produces. It sounds to me like that. So what do you make of these conflicting signals?
Okay, first of all, the question is whether the PDP is redeemable. Yes, it is redeemable in terms of, because to say it's not redeemable is that you no longer hear of it. You will hear of the PDP, but it will not amount to any anything of political stature at all. And you need to understand that. So in the next election, it will participate, but it will not contest. It sounds contradictory. You are taking part in an event, but your preparation is such that we know that you're going to get there and get worsted and beaten thoroughly and carried out on a stretcher. So it will exist or except a dramatic reconfiguration occurs within that party, with clear attention to the need to modify the optics of people you see in the party. Dispositionally, those who are in charge of PDP today are more interested in who to exclude than who to bring in. So if people are defecting, are you sure it's not because they can't find seats, they can't find conversations? The neck of a party will meet and not be able to take a decision. or take a decision that members violate and still say that is a party. So, question of redeemability, the question is, if it exists as a party today, what has been its activity at the level of ensuring party cohesion, organizing down the line, meeting at the national level, and giving the impression of a robust, like you said, APC gave a robust opposition. That's what we expect from PDP, so that APC will be on its toes. Now, coming to Nyesom Wike, I don't see any conflicting signals from Wike. Wike's signals are always clear. You can say that they are very strong and annoying to some people who don't like him. That is correct. But to speak of unclear signals, so we should ask questions. The people we should ask questions are those who say they are quarreling with him. We have a political party. A man is seen to have carried out anti-party activities, helped a government to come in, is working in that government and for that government, and we say he's still a member of our party, and he's still influencing what's in our party. My good fellow, Wike, whether you like him or not, you must ask yourself, is this man a fool? The answer is no. Does he know what he's doing? Maybe. Can you, disregard him? The answer is no. It's the PDP that should be embarrassed that Wike is still a member, given all that he's done and all that he's doing. It's also the PDP that should be embarrassed that he's not been able to manage such a man. Because Wike would be a political asset to anybody he works for. For those he's working now, he's a political asset. But to allow him to bestride both lanes and be doing 160 kilometers per hour, it shows there's nobody controlling the traffic. The PDP is making, with all due respect to the efforts, to the distinguished people in that party, is making itself look more and more ridiculous, not every day, but every hour as the next hour comes. They should stop kidding themselves. It's one thing to call yourself a name, it's one thing to be what you are, what you claim to be. The PDP is not a political opposition, it's not the opposition. The opposition in Nigeria today belongs to activists, civil society groups, concerned commentators, elder statesmen who speak on issues, on national issues. Because, look, and I go back to this example, the state of emergency was declared, the party leaders, all the big parties came together and gave a press conference asking Nigerians to rise and reject the state of emergency. Fantastic. How will they rise and reject it when your own party members, those elected on your platform in the National Assembly, as governors, as political leaders across the country, none of them made a whimper. They were in the National Assembly and it was passed in the National Assembly. And you are making a press statement. So market people should leave what they are doing, people in the office to come and oppose state of emergency. How? So you see that fact alone betrays a very miserable understanding of the concept of political mobilization for meaningful political impact. You don't meet at any level, your party members are never really brought into anything, and this particular element applies to all the other parties. And then when there's an issue, you make a press statement, people will leave what they are doing to go and do what you're talking about. You must be in cuckoo land, really. Because the point is this, in what other way are you in touch with them? So after making that statement, you go and sit down and say, yes, we've shown the APC that this is not acceptable. Nigerians will not be taken for a ride. We've told the people to reject this. You're satisfied with a meaningless piece of paper containing a statement that nobody will read, but you enjoy the satisfaction of having been seen in the public space. That is why what I tell my students is incestuous communication, where the communicator is the one excited about what he's saying without realizing that it's of no interest to anybody whosoever. Maybe I'll take your last question now.
All right. Beyond the politicking and the back and forth over whether Nigeria is sliding into a one-party state, the president did applaud his administration for the reforms and expressed hope, that there were gains coming. And he went on to quote the growth rates that we have seen, the improvement in balance of payments. But the real issues, Prof, remain on ground, and that is, 75% of Nigerians living in poverty line in the rural areas. Many more Nigerians are projected to be food insecure, according to also the World Bank. How do you reconcile the celebration of democracy, you know, with this stark reality, Prof?
Well, three things. Number one, on the question of one-party state, if the nation is drifting into one-party state, it means that those who are opposed to the government do not have the muscle, the strategy, and capacity to take it on. So there must be something making people drift. But even if they are drifting or what do you call it now, defecting or whatever, there will also be some internal commotion where they are defecting to, because those who are there are watching newcomers. As you're coming, they are watching your capacity to displace them. It's a matter of no concern to me for a simple reason. The political enterprise involves defections, disloyalty, commitment. It's a process of all these exchanges that those who have conviction about their own party platform that will stand. It's in the process also that a winnowing will take place even where they are defecting to. And so it's a matter of no particular, it's what happens in a democracy. It's not moralizing, oh, you know, they're defecting. Of course, people will defect. It tells you who they are. It shows you the kind of people you've been taking seriously in error, you know. So that is it. And just this is a point that's not related to this question, but if you recall, the APC produced a paper, I think the committee was headed by Erufai on, is it federalism? You know, region, well, some form of modification. Somebody should go and get hold of that paper and see what to do with it, because the suggestions are fantastic. So on the question of one-party state, let us see that happen. The parties are complaining. Why are you complaining about me entering your gate instead of keeping it secure? So that's on the side. What was the other thing? Yes, about the performance and the records, challenge to about poverty rate and all the rest of it. Let us note two things. Number one, the indices for measuring government performance, the impact of infrastructure measurement, these are inherited concepts we are working with, and they deliver figures we can live with in government. The other point is that the reality of the average Nigerian living his life is totally different from these indices. When, for instance, you say economic growth, the economy has grown by X%, and you set out to measure that growth by looking at the welfare of the people, you'll ask yourself whether you're the one dreaming or some people are on drugs. It's not peculiar to any of the governments we've had. It's been the pattern all through. When, for instance, they say, oh, inflation has come down by this %, is now double digit, you're just speaking English to fellow scholars, particularly of the Bretton Woods institutions. Tell me which intervention of the World Bank and IMF in the last 40 years has led to the dramatic development of any country on the planet, particularly in Africa. Tell me which of the loans have been paid back. Tell me how the assessments have worked. Southern Post, oh, Nigeria's rating has moved up, and we get excited. Those ratings are there reflecting in the lives of Nigerians as the price of the bag of rice changed. So I want us to disaggregate that and keep it on one side. And then come around to the actual condition of the average Nigerian. Things are bad, and they're getting worse by the hour. The reasons for that is fairly clear. What people can do when your income is not moving up and your expenses are moving up, you're going more and more into poverty.
All right.
So we cannot deny that it's not funny for anybody at all because of the costs.
All right, Prof.
The more disturbing concern is the reflexes of leadership. And each time we speak, we talk, the federal government is not doing this. My dear sister and fellow Nigerians,
yeah.
Do we have governors?
And
do we
that
have
may be
local government chairmen? What is it they are doing? A local government chairman gets 120 million a month.
All right, Prof, we must end this now. And that would be the most important part of the conversation. Pardon me, we're totally out of time on this particular segment. We've been talking with Professor Okey Ikechukwu, Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you so much, sir, for coming through on this particular one. And there's more to come as far as our reflections on the Democracy Day address is concerned. This time we'll take a trip yet again down memory lane, looking at the actual actors in the struggle for the actualization of our democracy now. So who was supposed to be on the list that was not? Stay with us for this next leg. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're still talking about June 12 celebrations and the speech of the president at a joint session of the National Assembly. We're joined on the program by a public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Within the short time we have to explore some of the things that happened yesterday, especially that honors list. Who should and shouldn't have been on that list? Who was missing and all of that? Mr. Jide Ojo joins us virtually. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, Geoffrey.
I almost mistaken you for an Inewi chief, but it's fine for a moment. But let's go straight to the business of the day. Mr. Dele Momodu had reacted to the effect that when he looks at, because we felt like people like Omoyele Sowore, Dele Momodu, some of the men in the military who a lot of us don't talk about, who stood firm for June 12, and as a result of that, they were kicked out of the military. When you talk about those that were involved in, allegedly involved in Phantom Coup and all of that. I was also thinking that Babafemi Ojodu, if he hasn't been awarded yet. So you have a lot of background to this. What do you make of the list?
Thank you, Geoffrey and Bukola. I think first we should commend the president for even deeming it fit after 32 years to recognize the heroes of democracy. I agree that the list is not exhaustive. It may not be as comprehensive as we wish it to be, but I didn't see it coming. Maybe I thought this should have come in his first year in office, being a democracy activist himself. But maybe wisdom dictated that he should do it now ahead of next year. Because if this comes 2026, people will read political meanings to it that he's doing it to galvanize votes or to mobilize votes. So I agree that those who compiled the list may have deliberately or maliciously omitted some names. But for God's sake, this is well intended. I mean, for the life of me, how would someone have not deemed it fit to recognize someone of the caliber and status of Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, who is going to be 91 this year? If it's not, it's either 90 or 91. I mean, how could you have understood that? We have an Egba son in former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who did not support June 12, who was not in the struggle, but was president for 8 years. And because of the malice he has with his tribesmen, like Professor Wole Soyinka, like Chief MKO Abiola, he never deemed it fit to recognize these people. It took former President Muhammadu Buhari the courage to give recognition and posthumous recognition, for that matter, to Chief MKO Abiola as the winner of June 12 election, and also to declare that henceforth from 2018, we are going to be celebrating our Democracy Day on June 12 rather than on May 29. And these two gentlemen, both former President Muhammadu Buhari and President Kola Tinubu, should be commended, should be lauded. I quite agree. Perhaps someone like Bob D, Chief Dele Momodu should have been on that list. Chief Ayo Adebanjo, who just passed, should have been on that list because I saw Fasoroti, I saw this other not Adebanjo, but I saw that one. People, but yes, Babafemi Ojodu. I don't know whether Sowore actually merited being on that list to the exclusion. Please get me right. To the exclusion of other student union leaders who also participated alongside with him, because it was not only Sowore that was on the barricade. I recanted my experience of June 12 and 1993 in my column in the Punch just 2 days back. I was part of those who protested as an undergraduate student of the University of Lagos. I was part of those who protested against the annulment of June 12th. But while some of us may not be the arrowheads, don't forget that we have several institutions and that had to be shut down as a result of our protest against the annulment of June 12th, particularly in the Southwest. All tertiary institutions were shut down. Media organizations like The Punch, The Guardian, National Concord were proscribed. We had several other radio and television stations that also suffer similar victimization. So if actually we want to recognize all the heroes of June 12th, it's going to be a very long list. More than 1,000 people should be on that list. But then it's about who is writing the history. Who actually, because I recall that from 2018, when former President Muhammadu Buhari actually rolled out the list to honor just Chief Ganifa, I think Chief Ganifa and me, Babagana Kingibe, Abiola himself. People said, look, what about Femi Falana? What about this other Ayobe and the rest of them? Now that injustice has been corrected. We have Ayobe on the list. We have Abdul Oro. We have Uti Ofemu. We have several. And let me also say this: the icing on the cake for me yesterday was the recognition of Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Recall that early this year, Geoffrey and Bukola, early this year, the National Assembly turned down the motion to have a national monument named after Professor Humphrey Nwosu. So they understand that the caucus in the National Assembly actually felt that an injustice had been done to him. But today, President Bola Tinubu has deemed it fit to recognize Professor Humphrey Nwosu. And that, I think, is the beginning, because I also am in support of the INEC headquarters in Abuja being named after Professor Humphrey Nwosu for the courage and gallantry that he demonstrated during that period. So, yes, it's a long list that should have been there. But don't forget, if you look at paragraph 54 of that speech, the president actually said there will be other people who will be recognized during the meeting with the Council of State. I expect that maybe when the proper conferment will be done, which may not be this year, maybe next year, or maybe later this year, there could be an amendment to that list as more people bring the president's attention to those who have been excluded. But kudos to him.
Mr. Ojo, if we consider democracy to be, an approach to governance that accommodates the voice of dissent, then we might ask that how democratic is the honors list, because if you consider that names like, Shehu Sani, if they had not returned to the administration, they might have still been speaking actively against the ruling party. If names like, God rest his soul, Chima Ubani were still alive, they would be actively speaking against, the administration. People still in the trenches like Showore are still actively speaking against the administration. Little wonder that they are not there. So how democratic, what is the value of democracy in that list if these names are not there? Mr. Ojo?
Well, again, that's speculative. That's speculative that if Chima Ubani was to be alive, he will not be recognized. Or if other people made a statement that if that is, we can only know that because he has not been offered. I recall Bamidele Atulu, may God rest his soul. How did he make headlines in his early years? During his youth service, he rejected an award that was offered because I think he had a grasp with the military administration at that time. He rejected, and that was a national embarrassment. We have seen people who will be honored and they will turn down the honor on the ground that, they feel they either don't deserve it or that it's a Greek gift. So we never will be able to say for certain whether if Shehu Sani were to be in opposition, whether it would have been included. And don't forget, it's not President Bola Tinubu that wrote that list. It's his handlers. Perhaps maybe someone in the presidency, maybe someone among the media team that may be saddled with that list to say, please draw a long list of people that should be recognized. And they decide to leave out some people. And perhaps the president do not have a recollection of everyone that should have been on that list. But now that it's generating furore, I believe that something could still be done. There could still be another honors list, maybe later this year. Did you even realize that for many years, President Muhammadu Buhari never even had the national honors and award ceremony for many years of his government? And now Tinubu has decided that this will be an annual event. And let's wait. If not this year, perhaps next year, there will be another list where more people will definitely be recognized. But it is quite speculative to say, oh, if this man has been in opposition, if Shehu Sani has not returned to APC, or if Chima Abani were to be alive and still criticizing government, maybe because the Sojudu is against the president, that's why it's not on the list. The long and short of it is that sometimes you also don't want to, quote and unquote, you don't want to deify
if I can butt in here.
Critics.
Yeah, my apologies. I've got time. If you can do this in just 2 minutes. I just thought about it now that, to be factual, the APC-led government has done more in recognizing the struggle of June 12 than even the PDP government that was there for 16 years. Because first, I can remember that it was Muhammadu Buhari that gave it Democracy Day, and now all of this massive recognition in one fell swoop. I stand to be corrected. But in reflecting on June 12, as somebody who was on the streets of Lagos for that struggle, and as you project into the future of Nigeria, what do you make of what we should do with this memory in 2 minutes?
Again, I've articulated that in my column in the Punch, and people can download and read my thoughts on June 12 in my column on June 11, 2025. The bottom line is that let's have credible elections. That's the biggest lesson of June 12. Credible election. Let's shun all this primordial sentiment of religion, divisive tendencies of religion, ethnicity, and tribes. Because that's what come out very strongly. That was the first time we have a Muslim ticket. Abiola was a Muslim, Kingibe was a Muslim, and Kingibe was even of a minority group, the Kanuri. Yesterday, Senator Kashim Shettima, Vice President, alluded to it, that he's from the same community, more or less, with Babagana Kingibe. And Abiola reached out to someone like that, rather than from the core Hausa Fulani group. And yet, Nigeria voted for him in a pan-Nigeria mandate. And that's one big lesson, that in our politics, we should stop looking at ethnicity and religion and trying to balance stuff. This is the second president that have done it. After Abiola is Tinubu that has also brought in the Muslim ticket. Today, Muslims are the one agitating that, oh, they thought this Muslim thing was going to be very beneficial to them in terms of appointments and all of that. But the man just used it as a strategy to win election. But one thing that I also want to say in closing, because of time, is that I listened to the two previous arguments about political party and one-party states. This is also an issue I've weighed in on in my column. I think April 29 in my column, where I said Nigeria is already a de facto one-party state. The president missed the point. He goofed in that his assertion that he never tinkered or ordered INEC to deregister any political party. When we talk about one-party state or two-party state, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only one or two parties that are in that country. The U.S. system have over 100 political parties, but the dominant parties in U.S. is the Democratic and the Republican Party. In UK, there are about 8 political parties, but the dominant ones are Conservative and the Labour Party. In Ghana, there are about 12 political parties, but the dominant one since 1992 has been the MPP and NDC, who have been alternating power. And briefly in this, between 2015 and 2019, I saw that Nigeria also have a dominant two-party state in PDP and APC. Unfortunately, because of the mass exodus or pilgrimage from other opposition parties to APC, what we now have is a de facto, not a de jure one-party state. Because here we are talking of dominant, one dominant political party. So the president may not have deregistered other political parties. It doesn't mean then that we still don't have a one-party state. What we have is a de facto one-party state.
Thank you. We'll continue to keep the conversation on the front burner. Thank you so much, Mr. Ojo, especially for coming at short notice. We'll continue to weigh in and build Nigeria for the better. Jide Ojo is Public Affairs and Political Analyst, joining us virtually from the nation's capital, Abuja. Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. Keep safe and stay blessed.
All right, we will take a short break and we'll be back. In just a moment, an interesting gentleman who is an engineer, real estate developer, who creates content for anybody who doesn't know anything about building. You will get to know if you follow him on social media. I follow him to learn. And that's what we brought you here on the program. See you on the next one.
And now let's take a breather from the conversation and reflections on Democracy Day addressed by Mr. President. Now look at other issues that affect you as well. Your building, your construction. What are the things that go into it? How do we, end building collapses? And what should you know about that foreman that you have employed at site and what he's doing when you're not there? And to help us make sense of that, we have joining us this morning an engineer and real estate developer. He is Mr. Ibrahim Folajomi. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So it's an interesting intervention that you have provided as far as construction is concerned. Is a departure from what we have been seeing. First of all, I'd like to ask how you found that niche, so to speak.
I studied quantitative surveying in University of Lagos, and I realized that we are seriously underrated and misunderstood in the industry. And the average person thinks the engineer, so to speak, is out to scam them. Meanwhile, a lot of times they employ quacks, they employ the wrong people, they employ the... Basically, there is a mismatch between the professionals and those that need the professionals. So my family as well have been victims of, bad developers, shady developers, bad quacks in general. So I decided to come out and be the voice of the professionals and bring some reason to the industry.
So how do you know the professionals from the quacks? Because that's a problem when any individual wants to begin a construction. They want to build their house. Eventually, they've gathered all the funds together. So where do you go such that you're sure of who you're employing?
Every single professional in the industry has a regulatory body. For the structural engineers, we have NISTRUCT-E. For the quant surveyors, we have NIQS. For the architects, we have ACON and NIA. So if you want to find a professional, that is the first place to go. I'll go as far as saying, go ahead to see their registration to be sure that they've actually gone through this training and they've been certified by the agency. That way you are sure that you are not falling in the hands of quacks. On the other hand, ask for portfolio, ask for references, let them show you what they've done. And that way you are sure 100% that what you are getting is good value for money.
So let's talk about building 101. That's the way I want to call it, building 101. So somebody, where should the person start from? Let's use some case scenario here. The state of the economy is quite biting, and it looks like people are farther away, not even thinking of building anymore because they feel like I don't have the funds to do this. So if you were to advise somebody whose salary is say 500,000 naira, and he wants to build, practical scenario. Or salary earners can build?
They can.
So maybe it's
the average two-bedroom apartment, two-bedroom bungalow will be north of 8 million naira, no matter how hard you try. That's
a build.
Yes, that is you are removing the cost of your surveys, the cost of professionals, taking out the cost of
land,
totally. So we are talking about pure construction costs, and that's probably just materials, not even labor included. And in Lagos that we are, there's a lot that goes into it. For example, when you buy a land, you have to register your survey, you have to register your interest with the government. You understand? You get your C of O. That has already shot you out maybe 2-3 million naira already. So then you go into construction. You take that survey, you give it to your architect, they do designs for you. Once the architect is done, they give it to the structural engineer, he does his designs for you. Then he gives it to the mechanical and electrical engineers, they work, then they all coordinate together and all agree on how this building is going to move forward. Then you take that drawing and you take it to the approval office. In Lagos, it's Lagos State Fiscal Planning and Permit Authority. You give it to them, they give you an assessment, they check the drawing to make sure that it tallies with the grounded laws in Lagos State to make sure that your building is not going to be a nuisance, to the environment at large. Then they charge you for it. If we are talking about a 250 square meter bungalow in a 500 square meter plot, which is the 50 by 100 plot that we are familiar with, which is feet, that's about 450 square meters. It will cost you around 400,000 to 800,000 to get your approvals out. Now, once you are out of the way, then you move to the Lagos State Building Control. Those ones are the ones that are going to certify that what that has been approved by fiscal planning is what you are going to build. You are going to get your authorization from them. Lucky for you, you've already paid for it when you were paying for the planning assessment. Then you go to the Safety Commission, register with them. You go to Lagos State Waste Management, the Construction, Disaster and Demolition Waste section. You register with them.
There's a lot.
Yes, you go to your local office, that's your LCDA. You register with them. I think that's what comes to top of mind. Then you move to site. You tender, you take your bill, You take your drawing, you give it to a quantity surveyor, they give you a cost. That cost helps you, guides you in order to know this is how much it will cost to build your house. Also in that bill, they put a contingency just in case the prices change. Then you tender, that's you bring 3 contractors of the same caliber and you ask, how much will it cost you to build this job, so to do this project? Then you start.
So the 8 million naira is apart from the logistics that is involved in all of this running around and the funding for all these registrations that you have talked about. Let's not discourage those who are earning 500,000 naira per month right now. But let's appreciate some of what you do by taking a break to see the content that Mr. Folajomi provides, and then we'll be right back.
Real estates are overpriced and our developers are just too greedy. Yes, I said it. Now let's break it down properly. At the cheapest place in Lagos, think about the cheapest place you know. Let's say a plot of land there costs 100K, but it's total bush. The only way you can see the land is by a drone because no road leads to that place. Government is not ready to allocate funds to turn it into a town for whatever reason, despite the drastic shortage in housing in Lagos. Even Fort Mainland Bridge, you don't wait since. Now a developer decides to create an estate in that swamp to provide affordable land because landowners in the next town over, they've generally become greedy and they are calling ridiculous prices for their land just because they were privileged to buy the land 20 to 30 years ago. And unlike many other dubious developers, they want to sell the type of land that won't be repossessed by the government, won't flood, and is actually accessible by the buyers. But before they can sell, they have to pay the government for documentation, survey, title. They have to clear the land because bush no be estate. They have to create roads and drainage because without them, it's a glorified swamp, as I mentioned before. Do you know how expensive road creation is? They have to install electric poles, wiring, transformers. Basically a power substation because NEPA will not do it for them. Sandfill the land because Lagos soil is generally below sea level. By the time this is done, the cost has jumped from 100K per plot to 10 million. Now the developer needs to make profit. They have 2.5 million because they didn't come to Cambridge in Lagos. Realtors will take their commission, let's say 1 million per plot because Facebook ads are not cheap. Final price, 13.5 million for a secure, properly titled plot of land in the farthest reach of Lagos. Now watch what happens next. A seller in the next area sees this and thinks, if the land there is selling for 13.5 million, my land is closer to civilization. Why should I sell for less? Then he raises his own price to 18 million. The next area, more developed, now adjusts their own price to 50 million. The next, 100 million. Now fast forward, and now Banana Island is 6 billion naira per plot. So who actually caused these prices to increase? Look at the price chain again. And at what point the developer is involved in this price increase? If a developer sells for 13.5 million after spending billions on infrastructure, and a private landowner who has built nothing raises their price just because the land near them has gone up.
That's Mr. Ibrahim Folajomian. He's addressing the real issues that exclude those who are not as empowered, that want to access land and own a home in the country. Thank you so much for that intervention that you're providing. But let's get into some of the do's and don'ts and what potential homeowners should consider, and the questions they should really be asking the engineers at site when they're building, such that we can avoid the constant building collapse cases that we have.
In general, employ the right people. As I mentioned, check who you are employing. Make sure that they are certified. Once they go through certification and they have a certificate, they definitely know what they are doing. Employ them and pay them. Now, make sure that at the same time, while you have a professional for engineering part, you have a professional for the architectural part. And also, where people get it wrong is that they don't have a professional for costing, which is the quantity surveyor. They give you a cost up front. Sometimes we do not employ a quantity surveyor. And when we do, when they give us a cost, we do not believe them. I did a video the other day talking about the cost of a 12 units of apartment, and I said it was costing 1.6 billion. And people were like, no, it cannot cost that much. A certified quantity surveyor got that cost based on market rate, and that is what it costs. But if you go ahead and you don't believe and you say 1 billion will finish it, that building will not finish.
So, and no, learn on your thought.
So, and that is where we usually have those issues in the Nigerian construction industry.
And some people try to cut corners.
Yes.
So let's talk about the POP issues.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw the videos.
Yes.
Why are POPs collapsing?
Bad workmanship. I won't speak to the part of the client. I'll speak to the part of the artisans doing the work. A lot of times, artisan schools, people go there and they don't finish. They come out and they claim they know what they are doing. You don't employ them based on maybe past experience and things like that, and you just take them. At the end of the day, you're having issues. If a ceiling is supposed to be designed a certain way and is supposed to be hung on the wall, on the soffit of the slab, what we call decking, you understand? If it is done that exact way, you won't have problems. I'll give you an example. There is a particular steel wire that you are supposed to attach to the nail that you nail into the structural ceiling before you then attach it to what the POP will be. Some people use binding wire. Binding wire, not just binding wire, low quality binding wire. Definitely when you rust it, it's going to cut. Another issue is water. The structural ceiling above is leaking. You do not know. The POP is taking in the water, getting heavier and heavier. At the end of the day, it collapses. But the past 2 videos I've seen, if you watch those videos carefully, the POP held. It was the attachment, what was holding it to the structural ceiling, that failed. So that tells you that POP is not bad. It's those installing the POP that do not know what they are doing, or installing them with low quality materials. So if you want to do the work right, look for those that know what they are doing and do not rule out supervision.
So that suggests to me that either it's falling POP or it's building collapse. There seems to be a lot of quirks in the industry.
Yes.
And that speaks to regulation. Yeah. Either it's from the government or from the Association of Professionals of Engineers. How do we address that particular challenge?
Lagos State Building Control Agency was set up by Governor Fashola, and between that time and now, we've drastically reduced the number of collapses. But I would go as far as saying that they are severely understaffed compared to the amount of buildings coming up in Lagos. So they usually are not everywhere. And the guys that usually do this quackery, they are not dumb, they are smart. Sometimes they walk through the night, sometimes they present something different. For example, there's an agency called Lagos State Material Testing Lab. They are supposed to take your samples and test them. Those samples are supposed to be drawn from the batch of concrete you are making. Mm-hmm. Some would not use that batch. They will use a special batch that is well done, and they send that in for confirmation. Whereas what they're actually building is not of good quality.
Wow. So
there is reinforcement steel of 1.3 million per ton, and there's also the one of 890,000. Guess the one that fails buildings is the cheaper one. There's a reason why the one that is more expensive is expensive. For example, you have an issue of a 16mm rod. You are holding it in your hand, you put a caliper to measure, and you're getting 12.8. Definitely, the engineering calculations for 16mm will never apply for 12.8.
So why is the cheaper one in the market in the first place if it fails? But
that's another...
Before you answer that question, there's something we need to show you so you can speak to it. We just have about a minute. The POP, this one, what do you think happened here? We're going to roll it again. I hope you saw this.
Yes.
So check it out. It goes dumb. What happened?
As you can see, the POP ceiling itself held in place. It fell as a whole. Okay. So meaning that the attachment holding it to the structural ceiling is what failed. Most likely binding wire instead of solid steel wires to hold them. Most likely chandeliers that were hung on them were not planned initially, because if the chandelier was hung to the structural ceiling, the POP should fall through it, not with it. So definitely the chandelier was hung on it. I don't know how heavy, but it's simple to say it failed from the attachment, not the POP.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. Totally. But I was asking a question about if the cheaper ones is going to fail eventually, why do we allow it in our country?
That's above my pay grade.
Yeah, no, because this is it's as simple as it is. If something is not good enough, there's no what's the idea? Because this is a life and death situation. So that is the end game. If you mistakenly are in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're gone. God forbid.
That speaks to the demand and the supply. The supply is available, but why is the demand there? We ourselves should not buy them. If we do not, those people will run out of business and they would not make them anymore. So it is best. Our regulators are in place. They are doing what they do.
They are not doing enough, apparently.
I don't disagree. However, it is up to us as well that these investments that we are putting money on top of, we fight to get the right things out of them. You can't always leave it to the regulators and say you just sit down. It's like security, it's every man's business.
I totally agree, because I raised that question with the governor of Lagos State, and he agreed with me to the effect that, yes, they have to do more, because why do you wait for the buildings, for instance, demolition? Why do you wait till it even come up and then you go and demolish? Why don't you stop it from the outset? Because
and there's so many other things that we can ask, why we have so many buildings on the island that are, demarcated by just 3 inches, and these buildings are not bungalows, they're tall buildings, but we must anchor at this point.
Or by 4 swimming pool.
Yeah.
Fish pond.
We must anchor at this one, and thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim Folajomi, real estate developer and engineer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that sums it up on this edition of the program for today. Thank you so much for being there. We'll be back again next week. I am Kola Ologbondiyan. And
I'm Jeffrey. So have yourself a beautiful weekend. Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. Bye-bye.